In this video, you're going to learn how to use your graphing calculator to find the zeros of any polynomial function. So first thing we need to do is we need to type in the function that we're using into the y equals, and y equals is up here in the top left corner. So we're going to use x to the third power minus 6x to the second power plus 9x. So there are three different ways that I'm going to show you how to find the zeros of a function. So first thing you want to do is you want to bring up the graph of this function. So we're just going to go ahead and hit graph. If your calculator doesn't look like mine, go over here to window and type in these numbers so that it matches. So you want your x values, the scale on your x axis, to start at -10 as the min and go to +10, and you want it to count by 1. You want the y minimum to also be -10 and go up to +10 and also count by 1 on the y-axis. So once you have all that changed, you can go back to graph, and there's the graph of this function. So as you can see, this cubic function only crosses the x-axis at 2 spots. It crosses right here at the origin, 0, 0, and this one right here, which looks to be about 3, 0. So not all of them are going to be this easy, so I want to show you the different ways that you can figure this out. So the first function that we're going to use is called the trace function. And right here to the left of the graph button is the trace button. So you're going to click that, and a little x is going to show up on your graph. You've got an x value and a y value at the bottom. The function itself is written up top in the left-hand corner. And what you can do is you can use these right and left arrows to move the cursor, that little x, on the graph, and it shows you different points. So if we go back to right where it started, which was 0, 0, that's one of your x-intercepts for this function. If I use the right button to arrow over, just tracing along here on the graph, and I can get really close to what this point is, and it looks to be right about here, which I can just round these numbers to the nearest integer, which would be x is equal to 3 and y is equal to 0, so this would be your other x-intercept. So that's the trace feature. The second way I'm going to show you is to use the table. So right here on your graph button, if you look up above, it says table. So if you hit second and then graph, it brings up all the x and y values that fit this function. So this first ordered pair, 0, 0, that's one of your x-intercepts. You're looking for anywhere that y is equal to 0, and that's your x-intercepts. So the first one is 0, 0, and the second one is 3, 0. So that's the second way that you can find polynomial zeros. The third way is something that we call the zero feature. So let's hit graph to go back to the graph of our function. And above the trace button, it says calc, and that just means calculate. So I'm going to hit second trace to bring up the calculate menu. And if you look, the second option here is 0. So I'm going to use my calculator and make it calculate the zeros for me. So I'm going to arrow down to number 2 and hit enter. And what I have to do is I have to put in what they call a left bound and a right bound. And it just kind of shortens your graph, telling the calculator where exactly to focus to find these values for you. And you're going to have to do this for every single 0 that occurs for this function. So we know there are 2, so I'm going to have to do this 2 times. So right now, your little cursor is right on this x-intercept, or what we think is this x-intercept. But I'm going to move it a little bit over to the left, or just above that function, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to move over, and I'm going to do the same thing, but to the right of the x-intercept, just a little bit, don't have to go very far, and hit enter. It's going to give me a little guess, hit enter again, and there you go. That's your x-intercept. And you can round that 2.9999983 up to 3. And y is equal to 0. So now I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. So I need to hit second, calculate again, arrow down to 0, hit enter, and I need to set those left and right bounds. So let's move this guy just below, too far, just below and to the left of where I think that x-intercept is right here in the middle. So I put the cursor just a little bit below and to the left, and I'm going to hit enter so it sets that boundary. Then I'm going to hit to the right. So it's just to the right or just above what I think the x-intercept is. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to hit enter again. And it's going to give me the value, which is 0, 0. So 3 ways to find polynomial zeros. You've got the trace feature, the table, and the zero feature.